Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Hydroponics Daily, your go-to podcast for everything soilless cultivation. I'm your host, Dr. Russell Sharp, the founder of Utrema Limited, and we manufacture interesting fertilizers, novel biostimulants, and organic biopesticides. Now, today's subject I think is really interesting. It's a real doozy, and that is about extreme measures for controlling pest and disease. And when growers come together, a country or a regional level, to try and eliminate or vastly reduce a pest that is becoming out of hand and take some extreme measures that in the short term cause extreme financial pain. And whether it's possible and whether they can actually do it or not. Now, the first time I ever came across this is actually not hydroponics. It was field crops. It was oilseed rape or canola, I think it's called in North America. And in the UK, it was thought that if you stopped growing it on one side of the Pennines, which is the hills, or we might call them mountains, that separate one side, the east from the west in the UK, in England, if everyone stopped growing it on the east for 1 year, then you could continue growing it on the west and then flip it every other year. And this, by having the crop limited to one side of the range of hills, you could stop the flea beetle that was ravaging the crop. Now, we got rid of neonicotinoids, seed dressing and insecticide, and this meant that flea beetle got out of hand. And so rapeseed now is nowhere near as common as it was, say, 10 years ago. 10 years ago, it was everywhere, the yellow flowers. Now, far, far less rape is grown, much more beans and shorter rotations, just going from wheat to something else, maize, something like that. So it's thought that if all the farmers got together and decided, right, we're on the east of the Pennines, we're not going to grow it this year, we'll grow it next year. But the problem is getting all those farmers together to agree that voluntarily, because there's always going to be one farmer who would go the other way and say, sod you, I'm not going to do it. And then all the flea beetles would just be on his farm, and then that would infect the crop the next year. But if they were to club together and do this, they could potentially eliminate pretty much flea beetle from the population, certainly nowhere near as bad as it is. But this sort of concept has come up again this week, and it's specifically in hydroponics and in Almería, which is if you don't know Almería, it is the part of Spain where vast quantities of the protected crops, cucumbers, tomatoes, peppers, are grown for Europe. And it produces a vast quantity of these and a serious amount of proportion. I don't know what the proportion is, but it's really high. And I always call it like a refugee camp for plants, because it's not glass houses, it's polytunnels and mesh tents. It's with wooden sticks, a lot of them. Some of them are a bit more high-tech than that, but they grow the crop in crushed up rock from the mountain range, and they have a big problem with a number of different pests. They've got a big problem with nematodes, but the one they're talking about that I've read about this week is thrips, particularly the species Thrips parvicipinus. Have I said that right? Parvicipinus, yes, that is the name of it, which affects peppers and aubergines, cucumbers, courgettes, melons, and watermelons, which all grow down in Almería, down in what part of Spain is it? It's classed as, oh God, it's gone out of my head. Andalusia. There's a song about that, isn't there? I'm not going to sing it. But yeah, so the idea here is that they're going to they're not just going to split up who grows these melons and cucumbers and courgettes and aubergines. They're going to have a complete biological shutdown, where nobody grows crops apart from ornamental plants, which are not affected. And they're just going to stop growing all crops to eliminate thrips, because they're going to have a break. They're no longer going to have a green bridge, as it's called, that allows them to go from one plant to the other. So during the shutdown period, the greenhouses will be entirely cleared of crops and plant residue, because remember, the eggs can be inside the leaves, and the pupa can survive on plant debris and in the soil. And during this period, soil solarization is recommended whenever it is technically and economically feasible. This is where you put black polythene down, and it just heats the soil up to the point where the thrips and other pest diseases will just be destroyed. because they can't keep with the extreme heat. Imagine Andalusia in the middle of summer with a black polythene bag on. You wouldn't survive very long under a black polythene bag. I've been to some Almería greenhouses in the winter and I've been inside and have had to go out because it was just too extreme in the extreme humidity and heat. So in the summer under a black polythene bag, nothing is surviving. The shutdown should occur at the end of the growing season with specific dates adjusted based on production area. And I'll go into the dates that have been proposed. And it has to last for at least 20 consecutive days. So not a season, so they're not losing a whole season's crop, but they are losing 20 days of production. And the different areas, it's mainly going to start from May to 1st of May to May 25th in one region. And then in the Niger region is going to be up to July the 10th, July the 30th. So each one's going to have 30 days. So they said, the spokesman said, we recognise that implementing this measure might lead to economic harm for some growers and companies. Nonetheless, the current phytosanitary situation is severe enough to justify extraordinary actions, which could be supported by targeted aid programmes. So perhaps the Spanish government or the European Union will come in to help these growers. I did read once that Almería is the richest part of Spain, but from when I've been, it doesn't appear to be very rich. Certainly not the Moroccans living in the pesticide sheds who, have to tend the crop. It doesn't seem very rich, but there's certainly nicer parts of Spain, but that doesn't necessarily bring in more money. So maybe these growers don't need the grant and they should just suck it up and stop growing for 20 days as a collective, as a cooperative. In addition to this, they've also noticed the need for the use of biological control, the use of mites, and also, interestingly, having a few other plant species in and around the greenhouses to provide biodiversity so that they can support beneficial insects and organisms. So that's interesting, normally seen as weeds that harbour pest and disease, but they think this could be a good reason. So, could this be used in other hydroponic crops? Could growers in regions suffering major pest and disease or problems stop cultivation for a number of weeks? Or could they coordinate to wipe it out of a region and grow one crop or one type of crop one year and then switch to the other in another year? If you think about things like legal cannabis, you could have certain cities where they stop growing for a month or two to get rid of red spider mite, or not, that wouldn't work, would it? To get rid of, say, powdery mildew, where everyone decided to use fresh material or something like that, potentially. I don't think that would work, would it? I don't think you could coordinate that. Where else could you do? Hops, potentially, to get rid of verticillium wilts, but you would have to you'd have to find something else to do with the land. That would be difficult. So, yeah, it's a strange one. If you can think of an area where a specific crop where you could, if you stop growing, you could potentially wipe out a pest or disease if everyone coordinated their action, that would be really interesting. I'm trying to think of a very, very specific pest and disease that only grows on one crop. Answers on a postcard, please, or an email. That's been Hydroponics Daily for today. Oh, one more thing. Should have the hydroponic top trumps cards ready to give out to grow shops in the UK very soon, in the next week or so. So I'll be sending packs out of those to grow shops that stock our products. Liquid Gold, as it's called in the UK, it's called Gold Leaf in the US. If you're after a pack and you're not in the UK, then let me know and I will try and get some printed in your country. Or we'll get a shop in the UK who ships out regularly to send one out with any orders that you might have. So places like the Hydra Bros in London, they often ship out product to people in other countries. And so you could potentially, if you ask them for a pack of the Hydroponic Headaches Top Trumps, if you know what Top Trumps are, it's basically a card game that you play that's fun and you can learn all about pest and disease and pest disease and problems of hydroponic crops as you play it. So yeah, that was really interesting. I'll share some links and you can have a look at the video of people playing it when we finally get the hard copies printed, which is exciting. So that's more to come next week. That's been Hydroponics Daily for today. If you found this interesting, please do leave an Apple Podcast review because it helps us tremendously. shoot up the charts and share the word of hydroponics with the wider horticultural community. If you're not Apple, don't bother leaving a review because it doesn't help, but do make sure you follow this podcast so you don't lose an episode. We're coming into December now. We've nearly completed a whole year of daily podcasts. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed recording them. And if you are interested in novel technology, then do check out utrema.co.uk because everything on there is unique to us. Some really interesting technology that does things in your plants that nobody else's products do. And you can't say that for any other hydroponic brand. Every other nutrient brand will have very, very similar products. A, B, CalMag, pH up, pH down, boosts and things like this. We've got a lot of different products. All right, check them out. All right, I'll see you tomorrow. That's been Hydroponics Daily for today. Goodbye.